Welcome back. All right, so some news of the day before we get into tonight's games and we see what further injuries await us. Because that kind of ends up being where we're at, right? After the trade deadline, you get into your debuts, and then when all the debuts have kind of gone by the wayside, then it's who's hurt and who's healthy and all that fun stuff. Jeff Petry joins the list of the walking wounded for the Montreal Canadiens. He's out indefinitely with a lower body injury. Probably end of the season for him. It's been a rough year for Petry overall, so again, it's the same idea of it gives somebody else a chance now to step into his spot, and you see what else you have. So for Montreal, you got to make the best of it. You got to get somebody in there and see what you've got through the rest of the lineup. For Montreal, it really is the evaluation stage, which I think it's been since Marty St. Louis took over. St. Louis not doing like all the strategies and everything. Like he's keeping it very basic, very simple, the way that he's running things, and I think that's part of the reason why. Let them go out, let them play. They're going to make their share of mistakes, but you get a good idea for who you want to keep around and who's got good habits and who may not. So Petry being out could mean an opportunity for somebody else to step it up. Interesting with Vegas too. Dodonov with today's game, he now has 5 points in 2 games since returning to the team via trade. As I mentioned in the review, there are still rumblings he could be traded again. If he gets traded again, of course, he can't appear in the regular season games or the playoff games. Now, I thought he could appear in anything but playoff games, but I'm probably thinking of free agents that get signed after the deadline. Again, you can't play them in the playoffs, but you can play them in the regular season. And again, the name that comes to mind is just Marty Turco when he played for Boston when they had to have a goaltender. And he played well enough considering the circumstances. But yeah, Dodonov, I kind of hope that doesn't happen. Isn't there another option for Vegas, because he's been fantastic for them this year? It'd be a shame if he got traded somewhere and then just, yeah, your season's over. Thanks for all your hard work, and we're gonna move you off. Anyways, also for Vegas, they got Martinez back today, so Riley Smith is on LTIR, and Alec Martinez back in the lineup. Now, it didn't necessarily make a big difference today. The defense was kind of sloppy for Vegas, but his first game back and all that, so we'll see if that does change for Vegas, who absolutely have to keep winning games. Since you have games, you played more games than everybody else. If you're Vegas, you have to win as many games as possible. That's why I kind of chuckled when the announcer during the game said, well, it's not a must-win game yet. Yeah, it kind of is. And then in the third period, Vegas came out with that sense of urgency that it is a must-win. And I would think that all Peter DeBoer has to do is just show the standings and say, here's how many games they've played. Here's how many we've played. If we don't come back and win this, and there you go. So, yeah, Ryan McDonough out indefinitely with an upper body injury for Tampa. That hurts their blue line a lot. So we'll see how long he's out. And again, this is a situation where somebody else can jump into that spot. Now, they only allowed the 1 goal today against Detroit. We'll see as things progress how things go for Tampa. Of course, it's been a really tough last few weeks for Tampa, losing 3 in a row a couple of times, and suddenly they're having trouble scoring goals. They're going to have to figure that out. But at any rate, they did end up getting the victory today, and they did so without McDonough, so we'll see how they do without him in the lineup in general. Speaking of teams winning without defensemen, Dallas has done well enough without Miro Heiskanen. They'd love to have him back, though. And so him being out with mononucleosis, it's really unpredictable how long that can go for. It can go for quite a while. It can go for a week or two. And in the case of Heiskanen, it sounds like he's getting over it relatively quickly. He could return from this bout with mono by Tuesday. And then it's a matter of what's his conditioning going to be like? Is he going to be able to play full shifts? Is he going to be on the third pairing? Is he going to be, up to speed with everybody? So that'll be interesting to see with Dallas when Heiskanen gets back. Of course, they're playing tonight against Vancouver, a game that I'm not really sure who I'm cheering for. Because I mean, Vancouver, obviously, they're the team I'd normally cheer for in that situation. But Dallas is below the playoff line, and if Vancouver wins this game, it hurts Dallas's chances of making the playoffs. And I still don't know that Vancouver makes it. But I mean, Vancouver beat Colorado and they lost. So like, I'm a tortured hockey guy today. That's what the THG stands for, tortured hockey guy, which might actually be more suitable than the hockey. So tortured hockey guy might make more sense. Look at my teams I've picked: Vancouver, Dallas, and Boston. Yeah, no. 1 Stanley Cup in the 21st century between those 3 teams, and 2 in the almost 50 years that I've been on planet Earth. So yeah, tortured hockey guy might work. Batherson returns tonight for the Ottawa Senators. Speaking of tortured fan bases, Batherson, of course, has been out for quite a while. So he returns tonight against Florida. They could use his offense against a team that scores goals better than anybody else. And they just added Claude Giroux, who seems to be fitting right in right away, too. So it is quite the machine that the Florida Panthers have put together. We'll see what Ottawa does. Ottawa's able to play spoiler on occasion, so maybe it's not as set in stone as it might seem. Because again, Ottawa did beat Florida. I know they were a depleted lineup for the Panthers that night, but I mean, they at least know they've beaten them once. Vancouver news, Lockwood's been recalled on an emergency basis. The plan was to call up Lockwood anyways. So Alvin's saying after the deadline they want to get a look at Lockwood, and they also want to call up Rathbone, and they want to see how he does under Bruce Boudreau. Things for the Canucks have been completely different under Boudreau than they were under Green. And Rathbone's got a lot of talent. He plays here in Abbotsford. I've been impressed with him in Abbotsford for what it's worth. And Lockwood, it feels like his offense has been actually coming around recently for Abbotsford as well. So hopefully that translates at the NHL level. And so Lockwood being recalled on an emergency basis. We'll see how he does, how many games he gets into, and whether or not that gives him a shot at a spot in the fourth line next year, or what ends up happening there. Marc-Andre Fleury set to debut tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets. For Fleury, honestly, I think he's probably quite happy to be in Minnesota and to be in a playoff race. I do wonder if his career continues beyond this season. I think how things go in Minnesota might decide that. Like if he has a good run in Minnesota and if they have a nice long playoff run, maybe he looks at that and says, you know what, I'll stay in Minnesota for a year, and I would think Bill Guerin would be happy with that if that took place. Now, if you're a Kings fan, a lot of injuries for a long time, right? Well, there's good news. Tobias Bjornfot is going to return tonight on the blue line for them. LA seems to be slowly but surely getting healthier. As long as they can avoid that, so we get this guy back and we lose another one, as long as they can avoid that some teams go through, they'll probably be okay. And of course, for the Kings, they're in a really good spot to make the playoffs, and a couple more wins, I would say that they're relatively comfortable at that point. Really, they would just have to play 500 hockey from here, and I think they end up making the playoffs. The playoff line in the West is likely going to be, I would say maybe 94, 95 points, and I think LA, if they go 500 from here, I think it's 97 they get. But again, we'll see how all that turns out. So if you're a fan of the Kings and you've been waiting for guys to come back, it looks like you're starting to see guys coming back. And I think the acquisition too of Troy Stecher, I think that was a pretty smart move for them. I think that'll bear itself out. And then once you get to the playoffs, you just never know. The skills of Kopitar, Brown, Doughty, who hopefully comes back by that point, as well as Quick, we know what they can do in the playoffs. We are well aware of how good they can be in the playoffs. And Arvidsson can be quite good in the playoffs too. I remember the 2017 run for Nashville and how impressive he was there. So, for LA, they're in the stretch run. And they, again, should be a playoff team. They will be the only California team in the playoffs. But before the season started, there wasn't much chance given to anybody out of the California teams. I said they might make a run at it. I didn't think they'd end up getting in, but here they are. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding any of these items from the news of the day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.